My wife has started peeking at me from behind furniture and around corners. And every single day, it gets a little less like a joke and a little more like something is wearing her face. We've been together 6 years, married for 11 months. In all that time, I never once saw a red flag, not one. Lynn is calm, serious, the least childish person I know. She doesn't even like horror movies. She couldn't even finish The Shining with me on our first attempt. She was that scared of it. No history of mental illness. None in her family either, as far as I know. I keep telling myself that 6 years is long enough to notice if something was wrong. It should have been. It started 2 months ago. I was running late for work, rushing down the hallway with my coffee, when I saw her, just her eyes and a strand of dark hair, peeking at me around the corner. I burned my lips on the coffee. I flinched so hard. She popped out of sight like a kid caught misbehaving and scurried off laughing. I laughed too, honestly, called her a weirdo, went to work and forgot about it by lunch. 3 nights later, I got up around 2 a.m. for a drink of orange juice. Standing at the kitchen island, I felt that specific feeling, the one where you just know you're being watched. I looked down. Lynn's face was staring up at me from the other side of the island, eyes wide, unblinking, grinning like the Cheshire Cat. I screamed, not from irritation, from actual fear, and I couldn't tell you why in that moment it felt like fear and not annoyance. She scuttled backward out of the kitchen on all fours, hands and feet slapping the tile. I stood frozen for a long time before I even moved. When I finally went upstairs, she was in bed, eyes closed, breathing slow and even, asleep or doing a very good impression of it. I lay there most of the night convinced she'd jump out the second I closed my eyes. She never did. The next morning I brought it up gently. She looked confused, then burst out laughing when I pointed at the spot by the island. "You creep me out all the time," she said. "Guess we're even." I told myself she was just being playful, loosening up. I'd wanted that from her for years, I just hadn't pictured it looking like this. Over the next couple weeks, the peeking kept happening. Behind the couch, behind the living room curtains. Once, she folded herself into her grandmother's old trunk at the foot of our bed, and only the creak of the hinges gave her away. Half her face peeked out from under the lid, grinning like an excited toddler. I asked her why she was doing it. She didn't answer. She just slowly lowered the lid and shut herself inside. Then, for 2 weeks, nothing. I actually relaxed. I even joked that she must have given up her spy game. She looked at me and said, "Maybe I've just gotten better at it." I laughed it off at the time, but that line sat in my chest for days afterward, and I started catching myself checking corners again, just in case. Then a few nights ago, everything changed for good. Lynn was out at a friend's place. I was home alone, relaxed, and decided to take a shower around 9 p.m. halfway through washing my hair. That feeling came back, the watched feeling. I opened my eyes. Lynn's head was pushed through the shower curtain, her whole face inside with me, her body still outside the tub. Her hair hung soaked against the plastic. Her mouth was stretched into a wide, wrong grin. Her eyes were red and wide, like she hadn't blinked in hours. Her makeup ran in 2 black streaks down her cheeks. I screamed and slammed back against the tile. She didn't move, she didn't blink, she just watched me with that same terrible smile. After a long, frozen moment, she slowly withdrew her head from the curtain. I watched her blurry shape move backward toward the door. The bathroom door slammed so hard it rattled the mirror. I bolted out of the shower and locked myself inside, and stayed there for over an hour, ear pressed to the wood. I finally snapped and shouted at her to stop. I got one faint moan back, then nothing, no footsteps, no response, just silence and the drip of the shower head. I worked up the nerve to check under the door. I could see clean down the hallway to the stairs. No Lynn. I stood, reached for the lock, and that's when I heard it again, closer this time. I turned my head toward the closet. Her eyes were staring back at me through the gap in the door, mouth hanging open in that same grotesque smile, hands pressed to her chest, body shaking like she could barely contain her joy. I didn't scream, I didn't have it in me. I just ran down the stairs, out the front door, into my car, still in nothing but my boxers. I drove 40 minutes straight to my brother Chris's place, ignoring every call and text from Lynn along the way. 4 missed calls, a dozen texts, all asking where I'd gone. I stayed the night on his couch, unable to sleep, seeing her face every time I closed my eyes. In the morning, still lying there half awake, that feeling came back one more time. I looked at the window beside the couch. Her face was pressed against the glass, staring down at me, drool running down the pane in two long streaks. Same smile, same eyes. I shouted, pounded on the glass, and she vanished the second Chris and his wife came down the stairs. No footprints outside, nothing but the drool still drying on the window. I stayed away from home for another day, trying to convince myself I hadn't lost my mind. Then Chris's wife mentioned, almost casually, that Lynn had stopped by that morning while I was still asleep. No car in the driveway. Just appeared, asked if I was awake, and left when she was told I wasn't. That detail alone kept me up at night. How does someone get somewhere with no car and leave no trace they'd ever come or gone? I called Lynn's mother next, someone I'd never gotten along with and rarely spoke to. I asked if there was any history of mental illness, anything I should know. She went quiet, a long, strange quiet, and then told me almost urgently to seek professional help and never call her again. Not get her help, get me help, I couldn't stop turning that over in my head. Eventually, Chris agreed to go back to the house with me to check on her and try to talk her into treatment. Her car wasn't in the driveway when we pulled up, but I still didn't feel safe. The front door was already open a few inches. The smell hit us before we even stepped inside, thick, rotten, wrong for a house that had been fine 2 days earlier. The curtains were shut tight despite it being mid-morning. Broken glass crunched under our shoes on the stairs. One of our wedding photos hung crooked on the wall, the glass smashed out completely. We checked every room. The bathroom looked untouched since the night I fled it. Then I opened our bedroom closet to grab some clothes, and I finally understood where the smell was coming from. Laid out in careful pairs across the closet floor were at least a dozen eyeballs. Different sizes, small animals by the look of them, arranged like they mattered to her. Chris nearly threw up. I nearly did too. We agreed it was time to leave. That's when we both felt it at the same time, the watched feeling, except this time it wasn't coming from the closet. We turned. Under the bed, curled on her side, hands clasped under her chin and trembling with excitement, was Lynn, watching us like it was Christmas morning. I told myself she was still my wife, still the woman I married, no matter how wrong this had all become. I crouched down, spoke softly, told her I only wanted to help. That's when I saw the blood soaking her hands. I reached for her gently and asked if she was hurt. She lunged. A shard of glass caught my arm before I even registered she'd moved, and I hit the floor, blood running down to the carpet. When I looked up, her focus had already shifted past me to Chris, standing frozen in the doorway. Her mouth twisted into something closer to a snarl than a smile. I got him moving. We ran. She crawled out from under that bed fast, glass still in her fist, chasing us down the stairs. She caught me at the front door, jumped onto my back, wrapped her arms around my neck, and I felt her mouth right next to my ear, making that same wet, hiccuping sound she'd made in the closet days before. I threw her off and made it outside. 11 stitches in my arm, 3 more in my back. The police searched the house afterward. She wasn't there. She was never there when anyone but me could see her. They told me to stay somewhere else for a while and file a restraining order. I did both. It hasn't mattered. I've been in a motel an hour from that house for the last 4 hours, trying to figure out what to do next, half convinced the police would find her and get her the help she needs. Then 40 minutes ago, a text came through from a number I didn't recognize. 3 words, "I found you." Attached was a photo, dark, grainy, close-up. I only needed half a second to know exactly whose eye that was. I'm alone in this room right now, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm not.